It is not an overextension to say that Dooku is the best lightsaber duelist or in the top 3 lightsaber duelists in all of Star Wars lore, with the only real competitors to his natural skill with the blade being Yoda, Mace Windu, and Darth Vader. Dooku was an obsessive lightsaber wielder. Having trained many Jedi in the art of lightsaber combat, he was considered the greatest duelist of the era, being a master of Form 2 Makashi. The dueling-centric form, he was essentially the greatest duelist one-on-one that the Jedi had ever seen for that time period, having competed with and even defeated Grandmaster Yoda in various sparring sessions. Darth Sidious even considered Dooku his superior in terms of lightsaber combat, though admittedly, Sidious cared little for skill with the blade. That is why I find Dooku's comments about one General Grievous to be most intriguing, as Dooku's thoughts on General Grievous's lightsaber form are very much a mixed bag, and today we'll discuss why he actually hated Grievous's lightsaber form, as well as why he believed that Grievous was one of the few individuals that could potentially get the better of Dooku in a lightsaber duel. Yes, on one rare occasion near the end of his life, Dooku actually admitted that if Grievous were to get lucky, Grievous could actually have defeated the Count, and today we'll explain why. In all actuality, Dooku found it an absolute pleasure to train General Grievous in lightsaber combat. General Grievous had a partially cybernetic mind that had all 7 forms of lightsaber combat downloaded into it, meaning that he could call upon any form and any variation instantaneously. But what pleased the Count was, despite this huge natural advantage over the Jedi, Dooku still found it highly necessary to train with Dooku and to train on his own. The aggression centers of Grievous's brain were dialed up to a 10 by the droids that reconstructed his body, and Dooku was pleased with how rageful and dangerous Grievous was. He too found a kindred spirit in some sense in General Grievous, as Grievous was just as obsessed with lightsaber combat as Dooku himself was. Despite not being force sensitive at all, this made Grievous an absolute pleasure to train. General Grievous did not ever coast when it came to his natural skill with the lightsaber, even despite being able to wield 4 lightsabers at once, and he was obsessed with improving his skill to compete with Jedi like Mace Windu and Yoda. Grievous's drive only continued though, when Dooku said that he lacked a key component that many Jedi actually had, and why towards the beginning of their training, Count Dooku admitted that Yoda and Mace Windu would have been able to defeat and best Grievous, something that infuriated him coming from his master. Dooku explained that General Grievous lacked all sense of finesse and the greater grace of a lightsaber duel, believing that he relied far too heavily on power strikes and far too heavily on his own physical strength against a Jedi. Despite this massive critique though, this was also General Grievous's greatest advantage against Dooku and the Jedi in general. At various times during their sparring sessions, Grievous would push an advance against Dooku, something that would shock him a great deal and cause him to reflect on his age and the skill of the cybernetic monster, stating that he believed that if General Grievous got lucky and Dooku was not on his best day, that Grievous did have a legitimate chance of besting him. Not only was General Grievous physically imposing, but again he was highly unpredictable due to the cybernetics of his brain and the near endless results of the 7 variations of lightsaber combat. Grievous could be 100% unpredictable in his strikes, never coming at you with the same maneuver or tactic twice. This is something that Dooku found highly impressive and highly dangerous. It was true that General Grievous lacked finesse and the greater strengths that Dooku excelled in, including that of grace and patience. But where Grievous lacked in these departments, he excelled in nearly every other. In many ways, he was the perfect foil for Dooku. The Jedi had been trained and indoctrinated to be precise, to have finesse, and skill in set variations and styles of lightsaber combat. Therefore, when they were confronted with Grievous, who could change on the dime to any form of lightsaber combat, any technique, any style, they overwhelmed them nearly instantaneously, and the Jedi lost before the duel ever truly began. And this is the same thing that Dooku would experience during sparring sessions. However, Dooku was no fool, and Dooku full well realized that he had to hold certain information and techniques away from Grievous to ensure that if he ever had to, he would have variations of his own form and tricks up his sleeve that would allow him to overcome Grievous in a lightsaber duel, should Grievous and Dooku ever come to blows officially, with neither holding back. Dooku did have tricks up his sleeve that he did not teach Grievous. Not to mention, Dooku was very intelligent in the respect that he always held back in his sparring sessions with Grievous. This kept the general always wondering what Dooku was truly capable of, as Darth Tyrannus made a point never to go all out against General Grievous and constantly keep him wondering. Dooku had to take all of these precautions though, because of the natural power of the general. Admittedly, Dooku hated the way that General Grievous dueled, but he also somewhat admired it, being the exact opposite of his own chosen form. Something that scared Dooku though, deep within himself, is that he knew that General Grievous was designed and had one purpose in his life, that being to dominate and kill Jedi. And Dooku full well knew that he had been a Jedi for nearly 7 decades. He had trained as a Jedi, and he was the exact thing, or at least he used to be the exact thing, that Grievous wanted to kill. This is not to say that if General Grievous and Dooku dueled on even ground, that Dooku would not be the victor 7 or even 8 out of 10 times, as it's clear that Dooku is of course the superior swordsman to Grievous. However, according to Dooku himself, General Grievous was one of the few individuals that he believed could get lucky, and that he believed that should again Dooku not perform his best and Grievous perform his absolute best, that Grievous would have a chance. It's important to note that in the Revenge of the Sith novelization, there is tons of light shed on why Obi-Wan Kenobi was actually finally able to defeat General Grievous. In the novel, Obi-Wan states that he had to give himself over to the Force entirely in order to defeat the general. He states in the novel that it's no longer even him dueling Grievous. Instead, it's the Force itself. And it was only because Obi-Wan had to fall back on something that Grievous had no ability to touch whatsoever that General Grievous finally fell in a lightsaber duel. But anyway, my friends and students of the Force, what are your thoughts on this, and what are your thoughts on this major revelation? What are your thoughts on why Dooku believed that General Grievous could actually defeat him in a lightsaber duel? What are your thoughts on Dooku's criticisms and praise of Grievous's given form? And do you think that he is correct? Do you think that on his luckiest day, and Dooku's worst day, that Grievous would reign victorious over one of the greatest swordsmen that Star Wars has ever seen? As always, my friends, thank you so much for watching the channel and continuing to support it. May the Force be with you, and have a great day.